Well, hey everybody, welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone.
We are Generation X Paranormal. I am Logan,
I'm Nicole.
but you already knew that. Hey, listen, we've got a really cool show. You know, we typically have a lot of guests on that are, solely focused just on certain types of paranormal. And every once in a while we like to bring on an author that has maybe a fiction book, but it very much so delves into the world of the paranormal.
Yes.
And that is exactly what we have today. It's not I guess basically I wouldn't say it's one of those run of the mill kind of stories by
Mhm.
no stretch of the mean. But anyway, today we have Christopher Loric.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about Christopher?
So Christopher served as a United States Navy officer, and he retired as a commander with a year-long deployment in Iraq during a military career that spanned 28 years.
That is an awful long time to be in the military. I get
Yes.
it. Wow.
Loric's last assignment concluded at the outset of the COVID pandemic, having served NATO at the headquarters of Supreme Allied Command Transformation. So he definitely knows what he's doing.
Just slightly.
He is also a science fiction military writer who has penned his debut novel, SESG Explorer,
Yes.
which we're going to find about
Yeah.
pretty soon.
Yeah, and we did have a chance to read it, and we're really excited to talk to him because, I'm prior military, and I'm sure you'll hear me talk about it a million times in this interview. But, it's always fun to talk to somebody else who's been in it, and Nikki read it, and she loves it. So yeah, we're really excited to talk to Christopher. So let's
talk to him.
let's talk to him. Well, hey Christopher, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Now, honestly, the joy's all on our end. We're really excited to talk to you. You got such a great, vast history and a lot of things, but it's just I think your book has a very interesting, I guess, way of introducing, and we'll get to it later. The different races and all the or creeds or the different beings. We'll just say so. But no, it was a lot of fun. But anyway, we know a lot about you just from the book, but tell us a little bit about yourself for our audience because they may not necessarily know who you are.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Oklahoma, joined the Navy in technically 1992, but went active on Valentine's Day 1993 and wanted to go operational. Finally got that after my second assignment, being assigned to the Marine Corps for the first time in 1990, 96. And deployed with them on the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit in 98 on what we call the Essex ARG Amphibious Readiness Group. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Got stuck in the Persian Gulf because the ambassador to Kuwait got fearful of Saddam Hussein rolling south.
Yep. I was deployed on the same time on the Stennis, and we got the same thing. We were supposed to hit all these great, wonderful ports on its maiden voyage, but no, we just that was one of them. But instead, we rooster tailed it straight from Norfolk, Virginia to the operation theater. So, and to this day, and I don't even know if it's still classified or not, so I won't say it. But we are the fastest a nuclear aircraft carrier has gone from Norfolk, Virginia, to operating in the Persian Gulf. So it was cool.
That top speed is still classified.
Yeah, it was quick. It was super quick. But anyway, enough of that.
Well, and then let's see. After the MEU, did a few assignments. Got to 7th Fleet, which is headquarters out of Yokosuka, Japan. Worked on the admiral staff, and 9/11 kicked off. I was sicker than a dog that night in my rack when my senior chief called up and said, "Turn on your TV," because we were allowed TVs in our stateroom. At first, like everyone else, it has to be a joke. Crawled myself to my office, watched it there, and then it dawned on me, I better go to the flag plot and see what's going on. And I was supposed to start duty the next day, but our N3, our operations officer, is like, no, you're starting now.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, some more onshore assignments, and then got assigned to 1st Marine Division. And with 1 Marine Expeditionary Force forward, I was in Iraq in 2006 for a year. And soon after that, I went unified or joint. I was at commands with all the services, and I was joint so long, I used to joke, I only know how to spell Navy, and they give me a paycheck. Because
Yeah.
for really over 15 years, I was joint.
Yeah.
And my last duty station was with the North Atlantic Treaty Association, or pardon me, organization, NATO.
Yep.
And that was
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've definitely
it's
been under NATO operation when we were doing the whole Slobodan Milosevic fun and
oh
joy.
yeah.
So yeah, I hear you. Well, oh, go ahead.
And then yeah, I turned novelist. I decided to get my book finished and published.
No, and you know
That's
what?
good.
That's good. And from one soldier sailor to another, thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I appreciate it, and it's great talking to you. Um, but so kind of dovetailing into the book, and we'll get to that here in a second. But this is kind of one of the things we like to try to ask most of our guests is, have you yourself had a paranormal experience? And if so, what was it that that led you down this path?
Well, writing SESG Explorer uh, was more about my imagination being woken as a child reading novels, novelettes from the 1950s. Uh, Isaac Asimov, his Space Marshal, or Space Ranger, I mean, and Robert A. Heinlein books, and later transitioned to Tolkien and Stephen R. Donaldson
Mm-hmm.
and Robert E. Howard. But paranormal, well, my scary encounter uh, was I was born again in 1972, but never was a disciple or anything like that. I just became Christian in name only, like most people. But I rededicated and really started studying the Bible and stuff like that. And one day I'm taking a nap on the couch and I wake up and mom's at work. She went to work hours ago, but suddenly she walks out of the hallway, turns, and the look on her face is not human.
Hmm.
It's
Mm,
extremely demonic.
mm,
And I instantly knew I had a demon in my house coming right at me.
Jeez.
hmm.
And I immediately just started invoking the name of Jesus at it. And it wasn't strength and faith, it was just uh, yeah, I'm scared witless,
Right,
Sure.
basically. And all I knew was keep on the one thing that it would not like.
right.
And after that, it disappeared instantly. And I just started praying.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
I don't think anybody would fault you in any way, shape,
No,
or form on that.
no.
Yeah, we have certainly had our obviously we're a paranormal show. We've done quite a bit, but
Yeah.
we've talked to a lot of people that have had similar experiences as yours. So no, I my
Mhm.
initial reaction would have been fear too, just because we somewhat embrace it and lean into it. There's still many times her and I are scared. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just a given.
It's very similar. I had very similar experience as a child. I was pretty young, but they used my aunt's face to scare me.
uh,
So it's interesting that you say that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it
my
I didn't even say any I screamed and I ran into my parents' bedroom. And that's about as far as I got.
Sadly, because I've gotten into the word more, mainly because when right before I retired, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mhm.
Mm,
And uh, my old pastor from Norman, Oklahoma, because I now live in Tennessee and I retired out of Norfolk, Virginia. he told me it was a spiritual attack on her because there
Mm.
was no history, still is no history of cancer of any kind in her family.
Hmm.
Hmm.
She's Asian, uh, high blood, uh, or yeah, high blood pressure is the only factor.
Right.
And I mean, we were really blessed that we were at Norfolk because Portsmouth Naval Medical Center in
Oh yeah.
Portsmouth is a teaching institute,
Yep.
Okay.
and they had the latest and greatest. At that time, I'm slated to go on terminal leave, and we were departing within a few weeks. So anyway, we come here. She goes through her treatment. She's doing much better. She's completed all but one set of treatment. And
Awesome.
I really was praying,
Yeah.
studying, kind of slacked off. And we were at a show last month, anime, and a 12, 13-year-old girl, she walked up to our booth, and I'm about to start my thing. She just suddenly went off on this routine, very loud, and she just locked onto me.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of like, "Oh, okay, how do I not be rude and all that?" I was so focused on, the sales, the booth, the book, that I didn't recognize what I was encountering. And later that night, while discussing issues with my wife, how the show was going and how this incident occurred, it just, like, Holy Spirit brought to my mind, I screwed up in not recognizing a demon influence, at least influence the
Right.
little girl.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's because as soon as we got that broke, and she went over to another table, and the guy over there thought this was a great act and wanted to record it, and she was all confused, like, what are you talking about?
Hmm.
I don't understand. And they had to coax her back into the same type of uh, delivery. And it just hit me. I really need to be prepared because there were things I should have done as a Christian to help alleviate her suffering.
Hmm.
And yeah, that um, there was no fear or anything. It was just more of an embarrassment of what's going on.
Sure.
Right.
And because I didn't let myself be sensitive, I let myself become insensitive to
Yeah.
spiritual matters. I didn't recognize what I had encountered.
Right.
If I had, I could have spoken to it.
Gotcha.
I
Right.
didn't have to
Yeah.
be harsh or anything with the authorities we have. I could have spoken to it in a calm but forceful enough manner
Mm-hmm.
to alleviate her suffering, if not, help her out completely.
Sure.
Right.
And that was my fault for not being sensitive to the spirit in the spiritual realm, because I know it can creep up on you in a matter of seconds.
Yes, it can.
Yes.
Yes, it can.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you talked about your book, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
we've had a chance to read it, and again, it's definitely one of those where you get really invested in characters, and I think it's a great arc. But what is, or I guess basically without giving too much away, because we'd probably ruin it, but
Yeah, we don't want
we'd
to do
rather
that.
you do it. But what is,
I run.
yeah, what is
Yeah,
your,
you.
yeah, what is SESG Explorer about?
Well, first off, SESG is an acronym, Space Expeditionary Strike Group, which Expeditionary Strike Group is a real naval term. Uh, a MUARG, and so yeah, I got to do a little explanation for those who don't know the Navy Marine Corps team.
Mm-hmm.
Every 6 months, uh, well, actually, it's concurrent. The East Coast and the West Coast floats a Marine Expeditionary Unit, about 22 to 2,500 Marines on board a 3-ship amphibious readiness group. It's a flat top that they can launch helicopters and stuff, and there's 2 support ships. Well, that's an ARG, and it's called a MUARG. And I was with the 15th MEU SOC, Special Operations Capability, back in the 90s. But in 2000, it was decided to start adding destroyers or cruisers plus a submarine to the ARC, and that made it an expeditionary strike group because we gave naval fire support to the Marines.
Okay.
You know, so the book's title, Space Expeditionary Strike Group Explorer. So what's the premise? Um, Earth stumbles across a deep space message inviting contact. And in that message, they want whoever receives the message, because it's a general broadcast, to send back a message. And then you get to get a visitation from this alien race. Well, the United States, who is the one who receives it, having dealt with other countries and knowing we're not always above board, decide, no, we're going to send a fleet of ships out and we'll go visit them to make contact. And at first, it's very military oriented, and the commander gets relieved, and that brings in our main character, Admiral Kevin Brannigan, who's now given the task: go meet, greet, make diplomatic trade ties, but we're giving you all this military might to help you get there and get back. And if the worst case scenario happens, maybe you can survive. And so they go out there, they encounter different species along the way. They meet the Comoricans who sent the message. And it doesn't turn out like they want, and it becomes a fight for survival for the humans. So,
Yeah.
and their general order number one: do not let Earth's location ever be known to anyone out there. We're hidden.
Right.
Yep.
As it should be.
Yes. And you're right. It does not go as
No.
planned.
Mm-mm.
Oh, that is funny.
Yeah. So in the book, there's several battle scenes, just kind of just talked about. So how did your years of military service prepare you to write these scenes in the book?
It really helped a lot. Plus, I went to command and staff school at the Naval War College, and when I was at U.S. Strategic Command, my detailer, the person who manages our career, or helps to manage our career, I should say, in the Army as a monitor,
Mm-hmm.
they insisted I go to senior uh, Naval War College. So I went to the Naval War College twice, command and staff, and the actual Naval War College. And in there, you study about history, battles, policy, strategy, all of that. But Admiral Willard, when he was the carrier task force in command of the Kitty Hawk and all that during 9/11, and I was on Vice Admiral Misker's staff. Uh, so Admiral Willard's a 1 star, and here I have a 3 star. And later, Admiral Willard becomes my admiral of 7th
Okay.
Fleet, and really big influence on how we fight. Not just fight at sea, but fight in the air, under the sea. I mean, this was a true three-dimensional thinking man.
Right.
And for those who don't know, he was the uh, pilot, the adversary pilot in Top Gun back in the 1980s.
Really?
So the black mask
Yeah.
pilot in the black plane, or any of the planes flying, he was the adversary, and he did the aerial choreography. He was a
Wow.
Top Gun graduate.
Yeah. I knew that
So
name
when
rang a bell.
I knew you'd know it.
Yeah.
so all that helped to write those battle scenes in the book. Uh, in my college days, I started a novel where I was really trying to grasp how to write battle scenes, but that was my college years before military.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to finish that novel, but it's still in the box.
Yeah.
It wasn't the story that came to me in 2006 to write. It
Sure.
was Explorer, SESG Explorer that came to me. But yeah, the ship movements, sending out the fighters, the caps, the engagement, and I purposely chose technology that we could actually do today.
Right.
I didn't want super advanced technology. I didn't want the humans to stumble across a super weapon. You
Right.
know,
No, and
I didn't want a battleship Yamato from the 1970s, 80s with the ship with a superpower energy weapon that could wipe out an enemy fleet.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why it kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big fan of, the other stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars and all that. So of course I am. I'm Generation X paranormal, so I'm of the age to remember it well. But even with like Star Trek, it was very. I thought it was really well grounded. But you're right, there was a lot of advancement in technology. But what I
Hmm.
liked about your book is that it seemed more grounded. I could see some of the, obviously haven't been in the Navy. I understood a lot, but it made sense to me how that would go about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't stumble upon itself. I didn't think that things got a little too like you said, they didn't stumble upon a death ray or anything. So no, I thought that was really good.
Well, and for someone who's not into Star Trek or Star
Hmm.
Wars,
Oh,
it
she
wasn't
was.
so, it wasn't so advanced that I couldn't follow it and like figure out what they were doing.
Well, and that was, I mean, in a way, and I've been asked by my publicist and uh, somewhat the publisher, who's the audience? And I go, well, that's a multidimensional question because
Right.
part of it is for the military,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all the services, because if you notice in SCSG Explorer, I have Space Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Air
Hmm.
Force, the Army.
Hmm.
They're all in there.
Right.
And I decided to do that because when I retired and I had not yet published the book, Space Force had been created and I had done these joint commands. And I have a greater appreciation for all the services.
Right.
So it's written for the military for their entertainment, but it's also written for the non military person because I really tried to differentiate service ranks.
Hmm.
And the old joke about captain with, you know, uh, an army guy calls up a Navy base to get a room and they ask for his rank and he goes, I'm a captain. And he gets the VIP suite because a captain in the Army is not equivalent to a captain in the Navy. That's a colonel in the
Right.
Army.
Yep. There's
So,
definitely a difference.
yeah, so trying to blend that in a joint environment and explain that, plus not use all the technical military terms.
Right.
I wanted to write it for the non military person and hopefully for the young adult, maybe a senior in high school or junior in high school or college, maybe inspire them and show them a military, diplomatic, or science community life and how they're educated, they're intelligent, they're problem solvers, they're critical thinking, and there's an adventure in this that
Right.
maybe will inspire them to be service to country.
Right.
You
Hmm.
know, and one of those disciplines, it doesn't have to be military. You
Right.
know,
Well,
Yeah.
it's very much appreciated that you did that because I don't I don't know anything about it, so it was easy to follow along.
Yeah.
oh, good, thank you.
So, Christopher, something I want to ask because being prior military myself, if the government were to make contact with an alien race, which arguably we've kind of, with the new developments and things that have
Mhm.
happened with the carrier groups and the tic tac and stuff like that, I mean, it's a little bit of a loaded question now, but what do you think would happen as far as military response? Again, I know it's a little loaded because we're kind of at that little precipice a little bit, but
Mhm.
I'm curious about what your take is on that.
So when I look at that, I see two camps. Uh, one that is hesitant to use any military might, let's talk, and the other is this is a threat, we must deal with the threat. And it's kind of fear based, both are fear based, but when you look at the military, we're not fearless, we're brave, we're courageous, but we look at threats
Right.
and we must mitigate a threat. So, how do you mitigate a threat? The first step is a show of force, deterrence. Okay, you're here, we can talk, but if you try anything, we're going to strike.
Right.
Right.
And that would be the first military response would be a show of force. Um, but it would be solely for deterrence so that the diplomats can do their job.
Right.
So in essence, that would be our response because as soon as something just pops in, like in SESG Explorer, Earth has a fleet of ships suddenly appear, and the military is going, "Hey, there something's appeared on the sensor. We gotta get fighters out there. We have to figure it out," and everybody's going to red alert. You know,
Right.
the operations officer, he's freaking out. Well, he's not freaking out. He's the calm one in the control room, but he's instantly getting ready to call his general, the G3 or J3, because it's joint operations officer, to let him know what this contact is. He doesn't want to make that call until he knows
Yeah.
Right.
That's for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
something. But he's got the phone basically up to his head, ready to make the call regardless. But he's already given orders. Go find this contact. Who is this contact? And that's our response. That's our natural response, especially when you're around carrier. Anything comes into a bubble,
Yes.
you suddenly have aircraft launching to go find out who and what that thing is.
I have
You
slept on the flight deck many a night in Ready 5. So I know it all too well. And for those who don't know what that is, um, when you're in theater, what you would people would call a battle zone, I guess for lack of better words, we call it theater. And there's chance of imminent threat. They actually have an aircraft on standby that has to be able to be launched and in the air in 5 minutes, fully loaded, ready to go.
Wow.
So and it's all night long. So we have to be up there. The air crew's sleeping in the aircraft and us we're down on the deck, sleeping in wheel wells and doing the best we can not to let the steam from the cats, drive us crazy. But
So they've got to wake up and fly the
oh
plane
yeah,
like
you need to be ready to go.
immediately.
Yeah.
I can't even wake up and like stumble into the kitchen to make my coffee in
Well,
5 minutes.
the pilots are really awake.
Yeah.
Yes, at the
Yeah.
Ready 5, you can't afford to really sleep.
Yeah.
When I was at U.S. Africa Command, the Air Force always try and convince me for a Ready 13 or Alert 30, 30 minutes.
Right.
And I was always pushing for an Alert 15. I wanted that plane to be in the air 15 minutes after the call.
Yeah.
And when you look at the distances that we had to fly,
Mm-hmm.
15, 30 minutes, does it make a difference? Well, the guy on the ground might say, yes, it does.
Yeah.
Right.
It
Yeah.
sure will. Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, and when my operation dealing with the Sudan, no, we were at Alert 15.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Hmm.
But
So I guess with your book and given your knowledge base and everything, I think one of the biggest ones, and in fact, I'm wearing this shirt right now. It says Roswell, by the way. But
Roswell,
yeah. So what is your and I know that again, it's a little bit of a loaded question, but what is your opinion on what really happened in Roswell? being prior military and kind of getting, because we've done the case, we've examined it, and
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different ways to look at that. But I know I have my opinion as a military person, and I'm sure you do too. But what 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 do you think, or what would you feel really happened there?
So I really haven't looked at Roswell. I, of course, know, an alien spacecraft landed or crashed.
Yeah.
We may have had alien bodies, might have survived or dead on arrival. But my real question deals with the rumor that President Eisenhower signed a treaty with aliens,
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
which would come out of the whole Roswell issue, or vice versa. But I would ask the question, why pick the United States? Why not the Soviet Union or China or India or Venezuela or Peru?
Yeah.
Why us? And why only one country out of all the countries? We're not a unified planet even today. Um,
Yeah, that's for sure.
what's the objective of the alien intelligence? What's their motivation? You know, I was an organizational behavior minor, so to speak, when I was working on my master's of business administration.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and being an only child growing up and learning how people will try to manipulate you, I've always delved into the motivation. And when you look at dealing with other countries, they're a self-serving interest.
Mhm.
Right.
And it was really good when I was at NATO. Our military representative came to our command to speak to the U.S. only, because the command I was at was in Norfolk, Virginia. It's a headquarters, and all the countries are in the building. But our governments would come and talk to their people only. And our uh, vice admiral came and spoke to us, and he was very clear. Every member of NATO is a self interest country. It's not alliance first, it's their country first, alliance second. So if an alien race appears, why are they so benevolent or peace loving? What do they want? I want to know their motivation, what's behind it. Are they really benevolent? And if they're only talking to one country, they're going to set up a whole system of envy with other countries going, well, why are they talking to you and not me? Why are you getting the stuff and not me? And
Hmm.
that creates conflict on our own planet.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, that's certainly
So
true.
a
Yeah.
truly benevolent species would not do that.
That is a good point. I've never thought about it from that perspective before. Have you?
No, no, honestly, I really haven't, and that's why we wanted to ask you, because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a great perspective
To
to
talk to other
look at.
people because
Yeah.
everybody thinks about things differently. So yeah, I don't know.
I had always just kind of assumed the general idea that, the nuclear test sites and stuff like that, but
They just happened to be checking them
right,
out and crashed.
right.
And then we
But
found, yeah, I
but
don't know.
the point of like looking at it from the aspect of NATO and things like that, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a self-interest involvement. So no, that's yeah, I gotta admit, that was awesome. I wasn't really expecting that.
Yeah.
That's good. No, I appreciate that.
Well, and I guess speaking of that, they say like after Roswell happened that we, got all these like fiber optics and like the microwave, things like that. And they think that technology came from the alien race. So what do you think about that? Do you think that we've got any technology that maybe came from another planet?
Two camps.
That's good. That's good. More to talk about.
If we did discover a crash from another world, and the Drake equation would argue against that, because the underlying assumption is all civilizations in our galaxy progress at the same rate. And space travel over long distances is, well, we haven't figured it out. We can't even get out of our own lunar circle with
Right.
human life.
Right.
And we can't even stay on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Drake equation underlying assumption is we're all progressing at the same technological level, how did they get to us when we can't even get out of our own system?
Right.
But let's say they did. Our own intellect could tear into their tech and figure it out and how to apply it. And that's why I kind of talked about an SESG Explorer, because even though they go out with our technology, they don't find super advanced technology. They find different technology or near tech,
Mm-hmm.
and they find an energy source, and they figure out how to incorporate it in their fleet on their way to meet the Comoricans.
Mm-hmm.
The other camp, I think we're intelligent enough as a species to figure it out on our own without help. If if in Christianity, Judeo-Christianity is correct, our spirit comes from God Himself, which is the creator of all of the dimensions, which makes us also an interdimensional being. And if He can figure out and create the mathematics to create space time with all of the planes, dimensions, magnetics, gravity, the whole 9 yards, and we come from Him, and that's a part of us, why can't we figure things out? What do we lack that doesn't enable us to discover, invent, and then apply it and eventually get out of our own solar system? Yeah, I
Yeah.
have I'm a pessimist by nature, but I'm optimistic that man can not only, if we can get past our own biases, prejudices, fear mongering, you have to lose in order for me to win type attitudes,
Mm-hmm.
and we pull together, work together, we could be at Alpha Centauri in my mind in no time. As long as the astrophysicists, the nuke guys can figure out the travel, the engine, and the energy necessary to propel us. So that's really the camp I fall into,
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
but I don't shut the door totally on. Yes, somebody figured it out, got to us, they screwed up, and we're taking advantage of it.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Because I could see us do something like that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting.
It is interesting. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in your book, of course, it does involve Space Force. You know, you mention it. And obviously, it's a section of the military that I don't know too much about because it was long after I had left. But um, do you think that particular section of the military or department of the military, do you think that's something young Americans would want to join? Do you see potential growth in there, or is that just something that you think is kind of still trying to figure itself out?
Okay, so now I get to be critical. Great idea, piss poor execution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the U.S. military did not want Space Force when Trump was forcing it down their throat, nor did our Congress. And when I say Congress, I mean both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, where every senator is a congressman according to Article 1, Section 1. They really didn't want it. And now, if you look at it, Space Force is a service underneath the U.S. Air Force, just like the Marine Corps is a service, but underneath the U.S. Navy.
Right.
Marines may not like to hear that they're part of the Department of the Navy, but be glad you are, because there's only one service mandated in the Constitution to exist, and that's the Navy,
Hmm.
Yep.
not the Army, but the Navy. And the Marine Corps being part of the Navy, therefore, has to exist.
Yep.
So, and that's what they did. They did Space Force on the cheap, just like the British Empire won an empire, but on the cheap.
Right.
And so we've screwed it up from day one. If they did it correctly, they would probably have taken U.S. Strategic Command, which is focused on the center of the planet out to the solar system. U.S. Strategic Command monitors the sun and satellites, and they're a functional combatant command. The services, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, have to provide them services and capabilities, but the commander of U.S. Strategic Command commands and controls them for the president. I think they should have taken Strategic Command and made it the Space Force Command and make it a combatant command and focus them more on space and how to, well, to make the requirements for an actual fleet of ships in space, i.e., a new threat has emerged where China has announced that they and Russia will put a nuclear power plant on the moon by 2035. That expands our threat now all the way to our moon. And we've seen enough sci-fi shows like Space 1999 where our moon can be blown out of the orbit.
Right.
What
That's
does that
frightening.
do to our planet? You want to talk climate change?
No
Yeah.
kidding. No kidding.
I mean, tidal, that's where you get your tides from. And
Uh-huh.
jeez.
Exactly.
We'd be done.
Yeah.
We would
So
be done.
I think, yes, Space Force is a great opportunity for young people to join. And it can have a bright future, but I think, I mean, those who know, our military, current military, was created in 1947 by an act of Congress. And one must remember, we really work for Congress. They decide our structure, our capabilities, they give us our money. The Senate is the approving body for all officers to be promoted or given a commission. It's not the president. He is the operational commander, commander in chief. He commands and controls what Congress provides that office. Single commander for operations, but Congress really decides the military. Well, Strategic Air Command went away. It was replaced with the Strategic Command that has a greater command control, but people can't figure it out. And now we have Space Force. It's, to me, it's time to stop making things up, but actually take a hard look at the military and remake the military for today and tomorrow.
Well said.
Yeah.
So long-winded to
No,
get
that's
to.
great.
No.
Yes.
Well said.
is-
Very well said.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's perfect. And I agree with you on a lot of that.
Mhm.
I do think the military needs a good look at, refresher to see kind of if at least if the same game plan still makes sense, look at things a little bit differently. So no, I
Mhm.
appreciate that. That's great. I mean, honestly, I can't think of a better way than to dovetail on that. I mean, that's perfect.
Mhm.
But listen, Christopher, we're so excited to have you on the show. Where can our audience find you? Like, what can we do to help you out? I mean, I know that you have ChristopherLoric.com, but if you could kind of tell our audience where they can find you and how they can reach you.
I have a Facebook page, Christopher Loric, as well as the website. You can contact me either through Facebook or the website. The website also tells what events are coming up that I'll be at. For instance, in July 12th through 14th at the Knoxville Convention Center is a Fanboy Comic Con. So I'll be there obviously to sell my book SESG Explorer. On the website, I also talk about the follow-on book because this is really the first book of a trilogy. Minerva, I have to revamp parts of 2 chapters, and it's off to a publisher. Hopefully by the end of the year, it'll be out, and I keep a little status of it. For instance, Department of Defense gave me clearance to publish.
Awesome.
Oh,
Being
great.
that I'm ex-military, I have to send things to their security review,
Sure.
Oh,
make sure I'm
wow.
not revealing anything.
Yeah. Yes.
So you can track the books that will be coming out. That's where I'm going, plus reviews. Feel free to write a review. Um, I have a section where I have buttons where you can go to like Amazon.com or Books A Million, and please write a review on those sites. That you like the book, write a review for me, please.
Please do.
So
Yeah, we've again, like you said, it was amazing, or we've said is an amazing book.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely review it. But yeah, to our audience, please by all means go get this book. It's a lot of fun to read, and it's definitely one that'll get you into it. There's so much great information that Christopher goes through.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that its vertical is endless. I think there's a lot of fun to be had, and it's got a great message, and it's now a trilogy coming. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can't beat that at all.
Right.
So, but
More to
no,
come.
more to come.
I appreciate you echoing what Kirkus refused says, how I do a good job drawing you into the action scenes and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
so forth. I
absolutely.
appreciate
Yeah, no,
all
of
that.
course. But well, listen, Christopher, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute honor to have you. Of course, I always love and try to take as much time as I can with somebody else who's been in the service, and not that I wouldn't for anyone else, but brothers in arms still stay brothers in arms. So it's just one of those things. When you know, you know. But again, thank you so much. But yeah, other than that, we appreciate you being on.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, we'll see you later.
Been great talking to a fellow service member too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He's got so much information. It's great.
Yeah, he does. Which, I mean, you would think so after a military career of 28 years.
Yeah. And just all the different places he's been.
Or what he's seen.
Right.
Or dealt with.
Just such a great vast of knowledge. And it shows in the book. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you can definitely tell he knows what he's talking about when it comes to those type of things, like battle scenes and how like command works and who's, I guess
in charge
and who's under that person, which for me, like not being a military person, I'm always confused about that stuff. I'm like, I don't know who's senior to this person or that person, but he makes it, it's pretty clear in the book. Like I was able to read it without knowing any of that stuff.
Absolutely.
And it made sense to me.
Yep. But we had a great time talking to him. Guys, if you get a chance, please go out there, pick up his book. It's a great read. It's a lot of fun, especially if you like military stories. But even if you don't, like Nicole said,
doesn't even have to be military. If you like sci-fi stuff,
yeah, sci-fi for sure.
It definitely. I mean, it may not be super advanced, but you're talking about being in space on ships and aliens and this and that. So, I mean, hey, go for it.
But thanks again, guys. We appreciate it. If you're watching us on YouTube, of course, do all the stuff, like, subscribe, leave a comment. That'd be nice too. And also we're on Facebook
and Instagram.
Yes, we have graduated, as our daughter says, into, the new world. She doesn't say that, by the way. I just imagine that's what she would say. But anyway, give us a follow. If you're listening to us on any of the platforms for podcasts, please leave a review, 5-star, and give us a follow. Other than that,
you can't make them leave 5-star.
Can't make them. No, but you kind of want to. Anyway, guys.
And if you want to be a guest on the show, please email us at info@gxparanormal.com and we'll get it all set up.
That's right. Other than that, guys, we will see you next week.
See you next week.